All right, y'all. I'd like to welcome everybody to the furnace. Let's give a round of applause. Woo, woo, woo. I am Brother Marv. I am sitting in for Brother Ralph today. He is out. His wife had a baby, so he's out. Let's give them a round of applause. Got a bouncing baby boy. And I know for from our previous um, podcast, you kind of see where you have just people up front. But what we did, we kind of did a circular kind of new setup. How we did. Go ahead and pan the camera and show everybody, Benjamin. Show everybody. Be quick on the pan. Jonathan, I'm sorry. Quick on the pan. All right, pan it to the other side. Show them how we doing it. Pray that pray that the Lord will bless us with some couches. We want to put some couches up in here, all that stuff. Got some lighting, huh? Yeah, that would be fine. Put it right there on this on the yeah. But anyway, today we are talking about our main topic is we're talking about suicide. Something that is abundance of in this world today. I was listening to, and it's something that I have been pondering for a while, but today I was listening to the statistics of it, like from 2020, of course, when the pandemic hit. That's when you start to see a major growth of suicide. And not only with adults, but in our teens. You know what I'm saying? I was listening to a podcast today where these parents didn't even have no clue that their son was even suffering with suicide. He didn't even have no signs, and he killed himself. He was an all-star football player too. So it is it's very bad. And that was in 2020. And I was listening today, uh, continue to listen today, the statistics are continually going up in the Black and brown community. So today we are doing an open round discussion, just talking about it. And I got some questions. And what we're going to do, we got two microphones, and we're going to just dialogue back and forth, just getting everybody thoughts. But I just want to start off with a question. Question number one. How many of you know someone who have committed or talked about suicide? Yeah. So we only got two people that know people, right? Okay. Well, the next thing, would you like to expound on it?
Yeah, I'll go. So, um, one young lady in particular, that I knew kind of growing up for a while, when she moved from California to here, it was a very hard time for her because she had moved from California all the way to Texas, and there was a lot of parental problems going on. So it put a lot of stress on her. So she did get to the point in her life where she was ready to give it up and give it all up and completely be done with everything and everybody. So it was pretty scary. But the thing is, she never said anything, never said a word. So nobody was even aware that she had these issues going on. And so maybe it wasn't until I had asked her when I had seen a very large outburst that I had never seen before. I asked if everything was okay. And that's when she broke down and was able to tell me everything. And so that pretty much set off an alarm to be a little bit more careful and a little bit more watchful and starting to listen to things that she would say, how her mannerisms were and stuff. And it would make a lot of sense. But when you think about it and you don't look for the signs, I never would have guessed that she was my best friend. I never would have guessed that she was even suicidal. So, and I can also relate to myself with also being a victim of suicide, of wanting to take yourself out. It is when you want to do that kind of stuff, you don't voice it at all. You don't say anything. You don't let the world know because you internalize everything that's going on. You think it's all going on with you. But one thing my dad taught me, suicide does not affect you. Suicide affects everybody around you. It's never that bad to where you think you're um the only way out is through taking yourself out. So I give it to people out there. I mean, yo, use your voice. Use your voice. It's very important. Or even just pay attention to signs and listen.
Well, I never like. Well, I don't have like just one friend. Yeah, I think it's on. With my time having a phone, I've probably seen like at least 25 or 30 people, like, because they'll be on Snap and they'll just text, "Oh, I'm tired of life. I think I'm finna commit." And me personally, I think I've probably helped. I'm not gonna say helped, but like try to help like probably good 5 people. Like just try to be there for them because they'll come like crying to me or say that they're finna quit, and like I'm just as a sympathetic person, I'm just trying to be there for them. So I'll be like, what? I'm not gonna. I wouldn't say like, what's the point of committing suicide? But I'd be like, it's not gonna help anything. It's gonna hurt the people around you. So, but like,
So let me ask a question. Another question. Why does why do what makes a person, in your opinion, come to that place? Anybody?
Oh, one thing that that happens to people is depression. Depression comes first, then it's the suicidal stuff. So that's one thing I learned from suicidal. I never did it before, but when we see other people do it, it's depression first, then suicide.
Anybody else?
I have one. A lot of times, it can. You have one? Oh, okay. A lot of times it can suicide comes, like I said, it's internal, so you're always thinking. Suicide, the first I think thought that comes to mind is worry. You're constantly worrying about what's gonna happen, constantly thinking about overthinking about what's gonna happen tomorrow. How am I gonna get through the next 20 minutes? Worrying is the first thing, and that worrying leads to starts with an A, anxiety, and then anxiety leads to what Benjamin said, depression. So it's definitely anxiety for me. I could say that.
Myron.
Um, y'all what cause suicidal thoughts? Um, well, a lot of times it's just overthinking because a lot of people, even myself, I could say sometimes I think some people don't like me just because I'm just overthinking when nobody ever told me that. So I'll just be like, oh, well, nobody want to be around me. I might as well, kill myself or something. So it's like that's pretty much what it. A lot of times, what it is, just overthinking a lot and just like not using your brain the right way. Pretty much.
Um, man, when you were saying that, Myron, I was about to call you Bud, but it's Myron. When you were saying that, my thought is, and I'm not a teenager, so I thought the pattern is different. But just internalizing, why is that a thing to even think about somebody not liking you? You know what I'm saying? Why is that's a question I'm asking. Why is that such a major thing for you to think that somebody don't like you that will cause you to maneuver into those thoughts? Oh, y'all just speak at once now. This is a circle group. Why? So the question is, what Myron was saying. Why do y'all internalize? Like, why does that go so deep as something that's? And I don't want to say it's simple, but it's something as somebody not liking you, and then it drives you to that place. That's. I guess. Yeah. Yeah.
I'll say it's just like you just trying to fit in because like you probably like see some other friends and they hanging out and you'd be like, oh well, they don't like me, so I want to be by myself. I'm all alone, so I think that's the reason why it's so important. You trying to fit in.
Okay. And like Isaac said, when you say that you can't fit in, so you might as well be alone. That it's like a pattern, because when you start doing that and then you start getting alone, then once you're alone, it's like, it's weird. I don't know how to explain it, but it's like when you be alone by yourself and just steady trying to keep everything to yourself, it's like the thoughts get worse because you ain't got nobody to vent to. So now you got, you just talking to yourself and you putting it on yourself all the time. And then it's like the devil would try to, he'll just try to say, he'll start with little stuff like, oh, bro, you talk to yourself because you stay alone. People think you weird because you talk to yourself, and then you can't fit in and this, that. And it was like, if you don't get it's like for this generation with young people, we all seek validation from our peers. So if we don't get that, we don't see a reason to live. So that's pretty much what it really is.
I gotta say, I actually was up to that point where, well, I wouldn't say I was going to like want to do suicide. I was thinking about it at one point because like I was up to that point where no one would talk to me. I thought like no one loved me, I guess. Um, um, yeah, but yeah, it kind of my own set, but yeah, that's
And a lot of times I feel like since in this generation of kids, FOMO, fear of missing out, is extremely extremely big for our generation because no one wants to be the oddball out. Nobody. Because then you be considered a label. Nobody wants to have the label of, oh, that's the kid that sits at the table and like, you know how like when you watch your little movies, you see that there's always that one kid that sits alone and everybody else doing their thing. No one ever wants to be that kid. So when you try to run away from being that kid, you try to fit in with all of these different groups and you find out you don't fit in with these groups. Then that's when it gets to the point to like, oh my gosh, I really don't have anybody to hang out with. I have nobody to like me. When in reality, it's just that sometimes when you keep trying to fit in, you're made to stand out. You're made to start your own friend group, like that stuff. But because we're a generation that wants to have somebody constantly affirming us, constantly telling us, oh, you're doing a great job, giving pats on the back. No one wants to take that first step, and that brings the FOMO, the fear of missing out, the stress and anxieties and stuff.
Ooh. And and I'm gonna move on to the next question, but I just want to plug this in. I think a lot of times, Satan, he really see one thing about Satan, he know the Bible. You know what I'm saying? He know it up and down and side to side, left to right, with his eyes closed and everything. You know what I'm saying? So what he in his job is, and I'm talking from a Christian a Christian teen standpoint. Even in those thoughts, even in those times, what he does, he tries to tune out all the scriptures that you know. You know what I'm saying? And granted, that might be the very last thing coming up in your mind when you're in that moment, but that is the time where you got to be able to plug in and you got to be able to say, nah, man, God said I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. You know what I'm saying? He'll never leave me nor forsake me. You know what I'm saying? David said he had to encourage himself in the Lord, in those times of isolation. And I know it don't feel good, but that's what, as believers, we're going to have to be able to counteract and fight against. I mean, fight with the word, because that's all we're going to be able to have to stand on. All right. Man, y'all having a good time so far? I'm really feeling this. I think it's a conversation that definitely definitely needs to be had, and not just one time. Even what I was been learning, that it's something that should always be talked about. One of the questions I have: how often do you check on your friends? How often do you? And I mean, it's like you and even Sam, you like, man, I see my friends every day. I don't know. Maybe that was the impression I was getting, but I don't know if I got you wrong. I'm sorry, but that's that's a big thing. Like as of lately, like right at the latter end of 2022, all of these superstars and millionaires and these people just taking their lives and stuff. like out of nowhere, and it was like back to back to back. You had Miss America, you know what I'm saying? She just took her life. Regina King's son, out of nowhere, they was just celebrating her birthday, and then the next day or so, he killed himself. You know, you got the DJ Twitch. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, this dude, looking at him on the Ellen show, which I've never actually watched the Ellen show, but looking at all the commercials and stuff and all of the scenes, you would not even think. He looked happy. You know what I'm saying? So nobody is really, when they figuring that all their friends and stuff got all this stuff going, got everything going on, they not really saying, hey, how you really doing? So that's the question. How often do y'all even check on your friends? Do you just walk up, hey man, how you doing? Man, what's up? Because behind the smiles, there may be some tears. You know what I'm saying? Because as humans, we know how to put on the mask and make it feel like everything is okay. But deep down inside, you know what I'm saying, you're broken. So how many of y'all, I mean, do y'all do that? Do you check on your friends, or do you be like, well, I see him every day too? See him on the court, so it's cool. Kinda. I'm all right, big Sam.
I don't know.
Ain't got to say no name.
All right. All right. So it was one of my friends, and like they was dealing with some stuff because like a lot of stuff had happened, and so I just like randomly called them, and like they was just like it was like in the middle of them crying though. I think it was like last month. It was like in the middle of them crying. I just randomly called them, and they was just like crying. I was like, oh, what's wrong? And they was explaining all this stuff and all that. But then, like I guess by the end of like the FaceTime, the person was like, okay, she was, no, I exposed it, but 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 there was like you helped out a lot and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, I guess.
Sometimes that's all it takes is a simple phone call. Real quick, I remember I had a buddy of mine that man, you know, I didn't talk to for maybe at least maybe about a year or so. You know, and nothing, you know, no reason in particular why we just didn't call. It's just life. He got kids, I got kids, he in ministry, I'm in ministry, blah, blah, blah. So I just happened to call him, and when I talked to him, he was like, "Man, I'm so glad to hear you, bro." He was saying, "Man, he was just telling me he went through a dark time and he was contemplating suicide." You know what I'm saying? I'm talking about a brother that, you know, that pastor the church, you know, and he had all the weight of trying to do that, and he was losing his mind. He was going crazy. And I had no clue. And I felt so bad. I actually cried on the phone because I'm like, man, I'm sorry that I didn't even check up on you. He was like, man, bro. And you know what? He said, bro, we got to do better. We're doing that. And I'd be sitting here lying to you to tell you if I ain't did better in doing that. You know what I'm saying? And we have to be intentional in doing those things. You know what I'm saying? Especially in where we're at today. You know, it's like as the years are growing older, as it getting 20, 22, 23, 24, like life is really getting hard. And I wouldn't have had no clue that my partner after a whole year was contemplating suicide. And he'd have killed himself. He'd have all his kids, you know what I'm saying, family and his mom, man, it would have been tragic. You understand? You know what I'm saying? So we have to be able to check on our friends and loved ones. Yes.
I guess my thought is, as Christian young people who, like, I mean, really kind of hold a lot of the answers. Sometimes I know we don't realize it, but what Samuel said and what Minister Marvin said, what do y'all think? How do y'all think we can be more proactive against the suicidal spirit in this generation? What are some things that we could be doing to um actually combat it, to, you know what I'm saying, to stand up against it? What's some things that we could actually be doing more of as young Christians? What do y'all think y'all could be doing?
But like
Just
separate, like
period.
life.
Just in life, in class, at home, personally, among your friends.
I feel like what Sammy said, just trying to be there for somebody as best as you can, like especially like if you know like they're really going through. I feel like just trying to be there the best you can. That's my answer to it. Anybody else?
Oh, I feel like we can spend more time praying on suicide, um, and not forgetting how much of a problem it is.
I feel like since we all got phones, just like we ain't even got to FaceTime nobody. Just be like, hey, how you doing? I was just checking in on you. And I done that a lot of times, and people like, oh, thank you so much. That means so much to me. I don't understand why it means so much, but it's like, cause I don't know what they be going through. So I'm like, okay, but it's like then it's not only gonna make them feel good, it's gonna make you feel good because you might actually be having those thoughts too. So if somebody say, oh, thank you, that make it feel like somebody wants you around now. So now y'all both getting out together.
That's good.
Maddie? Oh, amen.
I guess I'd say don't think that you're in a way like untouchable. Like this couldn't happen to me or anything around me or anyone around me because anything can happen at any moment and things can change in a second.
One will also be like talking less and listening more to like listening to everything that's going on around you. Like a lot of times listening to the unknown is what I call it, what I called it. Listening for you see if you're in a crowd of friends and that one person dead quiet and not saying nothing, but they look for those just looking for those signs, just not talking as much and just paying attention and listening.
And I just want to add praying more. We got to be. Oh, I'm so sorry, Judah. I'm so sorry. You talking so soft over there. But that's good. Just reiterating what Bean said. We're just praying for being attention in our prayer. You know what I'm saying? And because that may be the only thing. If you can't get in touch with somebody, at least we know we can be praying for them. All right. Let me ask y'all this: do y'all think social media plays a part with suicide? Yeah. Anybody would like to expound on that? On that answer? What?
Samuel.
It's just like if somebody was like to post something, there's like hate comments and stuff like that, and it makes somebody like go deep down and like start thinking about themselves, and they be like, I'm ugly and all that, and people don't like it.
Yeah. And I feel like a lot of people they go on like TikTok and stuff, they be posting. So what you call it? What you call it when they downplay themselves? Yeah, saying that stuff. I feel like they go there just to show, but it actually makes it work because that's not a way. That's not a way to vent if you're feeling that way. They just want comments and people be like, "Oh, you're not ugly" and stuff. But still, even though, because they just want people to say that so they can reply and say, "No, I am ugly" and stuff. And so it's just
They
like,
want attention.
yeah, and then it's just like you want all this attention, but it's still getting worse. So you get all this attention all you want, and then still kill yourself. It don't really make sense.
Especially because they made suicide look like such a popular thing on social media. I feel like it's done the opposite of what it's deadly. Like it's bad. But when you see all of these famous people doing it, it looks like a trend. And it's not. It's not a healthy trend. And so it looks popular when it's not.
I know for myself, I never contemplated suicide, but I know there have been times, especially early on when I got into music production and having my colleagues, dudes that kind of made it, that came up around the same time with me as producers, when I would see them like exceeding me, that used to bother me. You know what I'm saying? And I would have to find myself like, you know what? I'm gonna have to back off of this. You know what I'm saying? And now, one thing I did come to realize, and what we all have to be mindful of, is what we see on social media ain't always real. You know what I'm saying? It's not always real. You know, the glamour of it and this and that, you know what I'm saying? Like a lot of that stuff is just be facades. You know, I'm looking at I see videos all the time where they talk about, you know what I'm saying, you can't be blind. You know, you got a lot of these what's the word? The woke people, you know, they always talking about, hey, don't be fooled by what you see. That is true. You cannot be fooled by what you see. That's what's going on and on social media. You know, and like you going back to myself, you know, I would find myself, you know, getting bummed out and almost like depressed because I'm like, man, I'm supposed to be in Nashville. I'm supposed to be gone. I'm supposed to be doing this and that. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, Nashville. All my, you know, and I'm seeing all my homies getting Grammys and Dove Awards and stuff. And I'm like, man, ooh, Lord help me. You know what I'm saying? But what I would find myself doing, I got to just back out because I know that's the enemy trying to get me to start thinking that way. You know what I'm saying? So we got to be careful with the social media. You know.
So Paul, he has a scripture that says, I think it's I'm gonna give y'all my version. It says, be mindful pretty much of those who compare themselves by themselves and measure themselves with themselves. And basically what he basically saying is that we shouldn't be always comparing ourselves to each other, to the people around you. You know what I'm saying? We're always just kind of like what you're saying, God doing one thing in your life and you comparing yourself to somebody who don't have, you know what I'm saying? You comparing yourself to something that they're displaying that's not even a reality, you know? And then you see that again, because you have, you know, the people that we're talking about that's committing suicide and stuff like that, like DJ Twitch, that really hurt me. It hurt me because I would see his TikToks and him dancing with his wife and stuff like that. And they looked like they really had this really awesome relationship, this awesome marriage. You know, they wasn't saved or anything like that, but I mean, it just was a beautiful relationship. And then when I think about the fact that he had all that he had, but he still didn't have a reason to live. And that was very sad. Now, some people probably looking at him comparing, oh, he got this and he got that. And he, you know, he got this job and he got money and, oh, look at his pretty wife and his beautiful kids and blah, blah, blah. And I don't have this and I don't have that. But not realizing that he's comparing himself to somebody, they're comparing themselves to something, you know, and nothing is not in any of it's real. You know, and so that was just really, that was sad for me. That really broke my heart there, you know, because that was you just never would have thought that. Another person I think about is Kate Spade. I think that happened like either 2021 or early. Y'all know who Kate Spade is? Oh, but she's a designer. She's like a lot of expensive purses and jewelry and stuff like that. And she killed herself. She did, you know, she committed suicide as well. And I just like, why would she not have anything to live for? You know, so we have to be careful not to compare ourselves, you know, to everything that we see going on in the social media. Yeah.
It definitely does play a big part because, and I can't imagine now in the social media era, because we didn't have that then back when I was a teenager, but now that's all they doing is comparing, you know, pictures, you know, posting pictures like Myron said, just to say, oh, how do I look? We wait for the alerts to say, hey, you're cute, you pretty, whatever. It's crazy how you wait for those things to get the validation from these likes and comments when and I think as young people, you're not giving yourselves, the enemy wants you to not give yourselves the room to develop because you have undeveloped identity is not developed yet, and it's undeveloped confidence too. You don't know who you are just yet, and so you don't know it is undeveloped, and so it's not and it's underdeveloped too. And so you taking what others have to say about you literally and saying okay, and you're matching that, and so your parents trying to battle with your, you know, with your peers to let you know who you are. your parents, most of us as parents try to let you know who you are, and you're listening to your peers, and that's we like you say, you want your peers to want to be accepted by your peers. So it's rough in these days. We do have to pray more, like y'all say, because I can't imagine, honestly. I can say, as I sit over here, I have both experienced the part of trying to commit suicide. Of course, thankfully, it wasn't successful, but I have tried that in my teen years, and then also having a friend who was successful in doing that. And in my experience of when I was in that place where I tried to, got released from the hospital and try to reach out to that friend who also was struggling with this, she hadn't already did it and successfully did it. And but like minister like Sister Damaris said earlier, what can we do? What can you do as friends to make sure you staying proactive and making sure you're trying to do something about it? And I think that would be one of the ways, is to be just using what you all have. I felt horrible because I already knew Christ. I already knew the answer. I had hope. And so I could have given her something that she could have used. Like she said, what do y'all have that you can give now? And that's to bring hope to people when you come in contact with them. Being mindful and sensitive to when they're asking the right questions and saying, are you okay? Because like Minister Marvin and Sister Damaris say, they have people every day who look like they're happy and everything, and then they commit suicide. What is that? But some of them are just hiding behind trying to survive by doing things, doing a lot and smiling, but they are dying inside. So it's still necessary to bring the hope, because you have it. We have it, right? As believers, you have hope. You know that the deception is that you're not just dying. You're going somewhere after death. You're not just, affecting yourself, you're affecting others. So I think it's imperative to know that, to use the tools that you have today as young people, the hope that you've been given throughout your life, to give to somebody else.
When I was younger, I used to try and get a lot of people's attention, and when I was getting older, I just been asking myself the same question: what's the point of trying to get people's attention? I mean, yeah, like you have a whole bunch of family that cares about you, but you're so concerned about trying to get other people's attention on social media. At that point, you're being ungrateful. At that point, so right.
Well, I have a question, because so say us being Christian teenagers and we have friends that come to us for advice, but we already know they don't want to hear nothing about that Jesus stuff. So they ask us, but they ask us to talk to them. Like what? Because I mean, if I was being honest, even though like I'm not saying this just because I'm on a podcast, but I really like when somebody come up to me and tell me, I say, go read your Bible, go pray or something. But there's some people who really be like, nah, I'm not with that Jesus stuff. So like, what are you supposed to do from there?
All right. What you would want to do in that situation, because like I said, it was the friend that I had. Yes, we went to church together and everything. Still didn't want it. So anytime after I found out everything was going on, and I tried to relate, even though yes, I was still struggling myself. What I did was just I don't want to say avoiding the spiritual side, but still trying to work on that physical side. So what I would do is I'd be like, okay, trying to do things like get you out of your mindset. So I'd be like, hey, let's go out and do this randomly. Let's go out and do this, or even let's talk about everything but what you are what's going on in your mind. And not all the time, yes, the Lord will come up in certain conversations, and certain times, yes, he will, because I mean, at the end of the day, that's still something we had to go back on. But I like your shoes, girl. Where'd you get the shoes from? Oh, I got them from Nike store. Stuff like that, just to I would affirm her, even though I was, like I said, still struggling myself, affirming her and letting her know, like, yo, I see you. You're still very much of an asset in this life and stuff like that. So being practical.
I would also say, don't try to. I didn't know how to put it any other way, but don't try to force Jesus on anybody, because they might like reject you altogether if you keep trying to force things. It's like, for instance, when your parents tell you to do something, sometimes it makes you just dislike it even more. Like, you can't try and force something on somebody and expect them to take it and like, oh, okay, I'll do that. You have to give them time. You have to, in a way, you have to trust them to tell you when they're ready.
Very good, Madison. Another thing that I think that we keep going back to is praying. Joyce Meyer said the most violent thing that we can do is pray. That's the most violent thing that we can do. See, a lot of times we think we want to step up and do something, we want to fight, but spiritually, the most violent thing that you can do to the enemy is pray. And I think, Myron, even just to answer your question, and a lot of y'all, I pray that God will put a more and a heavier burden on all of us to pray more and more and more. We have to pray about things that we see going on around us, things that we hear about, and not necessarily be just going on with your life, you know what I'm saying? And so focus on what's going on in ourselves, because that's another thing to help us come out of selfishness. Like, when you hear something, just immediately pray, even if you don't know the person. Even if you hear it on the news or you hear about it, God, pray. How could you pray for that person? How could you pray for their family at the moment, and take the time to actually do that? And I also want to encourage y'all as well that no, we don't force Jesus on anybody, but we also have to be ready to speak a word in season when that time has come. Because if God leads somebody to come and ask you, he's opening the door for you to speak it. And so praying in the spirit, speaking words of life, you know what I'm saying? Y'all have the ability to prophesy into the lives of your friends. And prophecy, again, like I told y'all before, is speak the word of God over them. That's just like we're doing with our scriptures and our topics and stuff that we're coming up with, and we went in, we pulled the scriptures from the word of God. Now you begin to speak that word of God into their life, because life and death are in the power of the tongue, right? So what we say to each other and over our friends and into their hearing, whether they hear it and whether they want to listen to it or not, those things have life. It matters.
We've been saying the entire time that people normally call suicide because, like, they think, like, no one likes them or something like that. But here's the question I gotta ask. I mean, is it really that, like, important to you that you get another person's attention? Like, we're all human. We're all the same. So I don't really see much, like, of a reason why you should get other people's attention. Well, we're all human. We're, like, yeah, like...
Well, I to answer your question now, I think a lot of times, and everybody's situation is different, but I think Myron mentioned it, the affirmation, what I'm saying? We want to be affirmed. That's one of the things that, even in the Black community, there's a lot of single parenting. So there's an imbalance of the, getting that, that the affirmation, what I'm saying? Something that our dad's supposed to give us, what I'm saying? We're supposed to be able to give that affirmation. I try to be mine every morning. I hate to put him on spot, but I try to make sure I tell Myron I love him every morning, or vice versa. It just need to be intentional in doing that, and that's why, your friends on TikTok, they post pictures or post saying I'm about to kill myself just to get those likes in, because it's something that they're not getting at home. You know what I'm saying? And it could be a lot of things. It can be various things that's going on in the household. There can be abuse. There can be sexual abuse. There can be verbal abuse. There can be physical abuse. The parents may be beating on them, and their only outlet is when they log on to social media. You know what I'm saying? So, oh man, I'm about to get teary-eyed.
Well, my thing about the TikTok thing, when they go post on there, I feel like the reason that's not a good idea is because when you try to give your feelings to multiple people and just put it out there, you don't know really. You don't even know people. You don't know the people who's viewing your video, so you can't trust them. And when you put your feelings out there, you need to be able to tell it to somebody who you could trust. Because some people, if you don't know them, you might not know that they ruthless people who just might shoot you down. And so as soon as they see you say, "Oh, I want to kill myself," they'll probably say in the comments, "Oh, go do it. Nobody care about you." Something like that. So that's the reason why I feel like posting on TikTok or whatever is just dumb, and it's just a publicity stunt.
There's a saying, hurt people hurt people. Hurt people hurt people. Yeah, that's our time, man. I really enjoyed the podcast. Did y'all enjoy it? Yeah. Yeah, man. Like I say, it's something that needs to be talked, a healthy conversation. I just want to make sure I add this too, is that as we being more intentional and praying for our friends, if you might be talking to somebody, even encourage them, hey man, talk to your parents, or Christian counseling, you know what I'm saying, do counseling. A lot of things, a lot of stuff needs to be talked through, and we don't have the expertise to be able to talk it through. And that's why God allowed psychiatrists and therapists and stuff, you know what I'm saying. He gives those people those particular gifts to be able to understand the mind. So I want to make sure I add that in there. And if anyone, if any of y'all know anybody, or if whoever may be watching, they have the new hotline 988. You make sure if you're in that situation or you know somebody, have them to call 988. That is the suicide crisis hotline. Something that just started maybe 2 years ago. And when you dial that number, it doesn't go to the police. It goes to therapists and psychiatrists, people that are skilled for this. So for those that may be watching, if you need prayer, you can reach out to us as a ministry. We will pray for you. Leave a comment below and just say, hey, look, pray for me, and we will come together in prayer. So just to let y'all know that we about this prayer life, you dig? So www.sfjm.org. That's the website. And we thank y'all for tuning into The Furnace, and we will see you guys next time. Woo! Spin it around. Woo! Spin one more time. Woo!